Kusizangpula, and welcome to the 16th episode of the Drukyul's Digital Salon series, an initiative of Bhutan Echoes. I'm your guest host, Tsedon Dorji, and today I'm so thrilled because I get to talk to one of my personal favorite authors, Linda Leaming. Linda's writing has appeared in many publications and newspapers, but for us, what makes her so special is the two books that she's written about Bhutan or about her love for Bhutan, which is Married to Bhutan, and her second book was A Field Guide to Happiness. So with that, I'm so pleased to say hello and talk to Linda Leaming. Thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
So Linda, a disclaimer for our audience, I've known Linda for almost 30 years now. She's a dear friend of mine. So if this episode seems like two girlfriends chatting away, we apologize, but maybe we don't also because it's going to be genuine. But I'm also here to ask questions that I'm sure the audience will want to know. So Linda, can you tell me a bit more about yourself? Because you're originally from
the USA, from Nashville, Tennessee.
That's right.
I came to Bhutan for the first time in 1994, and I fell in love. I loved the people. I loved the country. Everything was just smitten, like so many foreigners are. But with me, it stuck, and it's only gotten more as the years have gone on. So I came back 3 times, and the government, seeing that I was not going to go away and I was pretty harmless, they let me come here and teach English. So I taught at the Institute for Language and Cultural Studies and also at the Zorg Chusum. And at the Zorg Chusum, I became friends with, and ultimately married a thangka in Phurba Namgay. So anyway, that's about it. So we've lived pretty eventfully, actually, here in Bhutan for 24 years.
That's a long time, but I'm sure to you it must be feeling like just a snap of a finger as well.
It totally does. It really does. And I feel so, it's so lovely. I'm working on my 3rd book, and I'm writing and thinking about how it was and how it is, the differences.
And that's another question. But before we move forward, Linda just mentioned that she is, while her book is Married to Bhutan, Linda is married to a wonderful gentleman, Phurba Namgay.
I'm also married to a man.
And he's a man, disclaimer. And then the beautiful paintings were done by Phurba, or Namgay, because you affectionately call him Namgay, right?
Yeah, his family calls him Namgay.
So just beautiful. So I think it's important to showcase that we are surrounded by beautiful art here.
And there's rockets. He loves to paint American rockets, specifically Apollo 11, because that's the one that went to the moon. When he was in class 2, his Indian sir told him that there were these people called Americans, and they have these things called rockets, and they flew to the moon, and they walked on the moon. So he's a little bit obsessed and he's seen American rockets at the Smithsonian and at Cape Canaveral and all. When we visited the U.S., he has to go see rockets. But anyway, he's so lucky now to be married to an American. However, I never did go to the moon.
Never too late. Never too late.
Too late. But well, probably is too late. But
no, we will try to arrange this. So I'm gonna
send me to the moon.
We will do it. But as Bhutan's ambassador. But we want to talk more about what you touched on, about this, almost 30 years in Bhutan. That's a long time. You must have seen a lot of changes. I want to see from your perspective, because, I think for many of us, it's almost like we take things for granted because it's just there, And in so many ways, even change is like that. It's happening, but we don't stop and pause and say, wow, that's a lot of change happening. So I'm wondering for you, for someone who's actually consciously written about Bhutan, and that means you really thought about things. What are your views of some of the changes that you've seen here?
I'm a perfect person to answer that question because, I don't feel quite American. I don't feel quite Bhutanese, but I am poised, if you will, to be an observer. That's what writers kind of are, because I do a lot more observing than writing. And what I notice is Well, I mean, for one thing, just everything speeded up. And there were 10,000 cars in Thimphu when I first came. Now there's 120,000.
Is that for?
That's what the consul said.
Wow.
I mean, we
I
can
believe
double check
because
that.
There's traffic.
Oh, it's incredible. It's incredible. And I mean, that's just physically one thing. And just like the building and people are building up taller in the mountains, and just things have speeded up is the thing. And Bhutanese people have gone through more changes than I don't think anybody else in the world. It's been such a huge sea change for everybody. I mean, when I first came here, all anybody did was go to school and study, and then get a job in the
government.
Yeah, in the government. Now things are coming up. The younger people are much more entrepreneurial. Right. Of course, there's lots of migration to Australia, which never, and Canada and whatever. It used to be the U.S., but there were a lot less of them, and also they tended to come back after they finished. So it really is such a huge change. What hasn't changed, and what I like to maybe point out, is the culture. The culture is still here, and it's still so strong. And I love that about Bhutan, that the Buddhism and the religion, it permeates everything. And I don't think Bhutanese really realize it. Perhaps if they go and live in Perth, they'll see it. But even then, I think they take the culture with them. So the culture is really strong, and I love that.
So when I was rereading both your books, it gave me it was a good flashback for me as well, a good nostalgia, especially in Married to Bhutan, was it? Oh no, it was a field guide to happiness, where you talk about when you visited the bank of, we won't mention which bank, but
my bank.
When you visited your bank.
And sweaters at the bank because it took so long.
Right.
Incredible.
And in Married to Bhutan, I think you talk about back in the day, the civil servants with their 4-hour lunches, not just civil servants, just
4-hour lunches. There's nothing wrong with 4-hour lunches.
But the pace of life has
really changed.
Yes.
I don't believe the civil service do that. I think they hustle on back to office and get busy.
Oh yeah, I think now with again the
that's
theme,
a huge change.
The theme of changes, transformation.
Yeah.
I think because I can feel it as well. The sense of life being much more faster paced than before.
Yes. When I first came to Bhutan, there weren't many cases of diabetes, heart disease, and now, of course, we have. Things have speeded up. The whole world has speeded up. But I think that we're doing fine. We're doing okay considering everything. But I also think that one thing that I love about Bhutan, and one thing I maybe don't like so much about the way it is that we have so much. We're so insulated from the rest of the world through, God bless His Majesty and the government and our natural geographic barriers. It's hard to get here. It's hard to get out of here. And we can live our lives in a gorgeous way, albeit speeded up. But also, I think we have to kind of work hard not to be complacent and not to take things for granted, and to learn about the world. When I first came to Bhutan, it was amazing. There were fax machines in monasteries. I mean, that was a long time ago, and there wasn't internet even. But I was amazed by how outward thinking all of my Bhutanese friends were. They knew about the world. They knew a lot about the world. And if you're small and vulnerable, as Bhutan is, you have to be that way. You have to learn about the world. I don't see that so much in my young friends now.
Mm-hmm. But I think part of this speeding up of life is also because of the advent of social media and the internet in our country. I mean, I'm not one of those people who are against all these things. I think there's it's a tool, right?
Yes.
And then, like all tools, we need to learn how to use them. But I do feel like it has this era of instant gratification. And what was it that I read? I think now the average attention span is 2 seconds, 3 seconds? Something like that. And what I love about some of the things, we've had conversations where you talk about how you need to make time to read books. And
If you want to write.
if you want to write.
You have
and I know that this is something close to your heart, and I want our audience to know what do you really what are your thoughts about the writing culture or literature in Bhutan, and what a good platform Bhutan Echoes is all about, promoting literature, Bhutanese homegrown writers and creators, but mainly on Bhutanese literature. So do you have anything you want to say about this, like your thoughts on what's available? I mean, you have two beautiful books here written by you, but we also have some really nice Bhutanese authored books. What are your thoughts, and how do you think we can improve?
You first started talking about social media, and when I was coming up, when I was young and writing or thinking about writing, there wasn't social media. Social media, like you say, it really does mess with your attention span. The act of scrolling, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, really just cuts your attention span. It trains your brain to just go from boom, boom, boom like that. It speeds your brain up, and the scrolling just feeds you some dopamine, and so as you're scrolling like this, you don't realize it. It's a real time suck, and it's really totally antithetical to reading. When I want to read a book sometimes and I haven't read in like a month or something like that, I have to literally retrain my brain because social media, I'm on it. And especially like Instagram at LindaLeaming.com. No, at Linda Leaming. Anyway, I just take pictures of the outside of our house, so whatever. But you have to retrain your brain. You have to rewire your brain if you want to read something. What I do is I get a book that I love, that I've read more than once, that I just absolutely adore. And I tell myself, okay, 5 minutes. You have to read for 5 minutes, and it's hard. Yes. And I'm like, this is not a good book. It is a good book, but I just have to slow my brain down. And it usually takes me 2 or 3 days, and I have to say, okay, 5 minutes, and then I'll go to 20 minutes. And then eventually I can read a whole book, and I can read really fast, and it's good. I have to do that if I'm writing. If we don't read, we read to learn about the world. We learn biographies, histories. I'm really fond of nonfiction, but I see in a lot of the writing here, I think it's lovely that there's a real culture now where books are crowdsourced. You ask your friends and family to put in some money, I guess you write a book first. I hear a lot of people say to me, I really want to write a book.
Yes.
And I think,
I'm one of them.
Yeah, but you know what? I say, about what? Mm-hmm. And some of them say, I don't know, which is fine. It's good. I don't want to kill their spirits. Mm-hmm. But to me, if you say, I'm so interested in this thing and I want to write about it, I want the world to know about it, I think that's really good. Because that's an easier way to start out. It's a good energy.
Right.
But if you say you want to write a book, you might write a good book, but more than likely, if there's no passion,
right,
then it's not that interesting.
I think most of us who haven't written a book, we don't know the process. And
I don't either.
And most Bhutanese are self-published, as you know.
Yeah.
So there's no
Which
editing, there's no marketing. So hypothetically, let's say I want to write a book, Linda, and it's about me. It's about whatever.
I would love to read that book. How
do I get published? I
think that's a really good point. I mean, the self-publishing thing is good. To me, I have to go lie down if I think about, okay, you write a book and you're writing in the cold. I mean, there's nobody there to help you. There's nobody, writing is very lonely and solipsistic. And I'm pretty social. It doesn't have to be that way. But also, I think if you put out the effort, if you go for that, if you got a subject and you're passionate and it won't go away, you just keep living with it, and then you're compelled to write a book, then why not write for the world? Now is the time for Bhutanese voices. I mean, I'm American. I can write a book about Bhutan, but it won't be anything like what a Bhutanese would write about Bhutan. It would be authentic and interesting and the world needs to know that a place like Bhutan exists. And for Bhutan, it's a sort of protection. It's a sort of buffer. And it would be really good. And I know there's one person out there in TV land who's going to listen to this, and they're going to do it. And they're going to write like a book like Karen Desai's The Inheritance of Loss about Kalimpong, which is just oozing with this sadness and melancholy and beauty about Kalimpong, which is just an amazing place. But Bhutan is even more amazing. And so it's hard. It's not easy. Writing is hard. But writing for the world is what I think is important. You can do these crowdsourced books forever, and you can have a good life and everything, but they won't get out. They won't get out. And that's, I think, and it's so much more fun if you can do steps. And I can help. I mean, I can't publish your books, but I can help as somebody who has a American literary agent. You can have Australian literary agents. You can have British, but you can find a bigger audience. You can get a publisher to buy your book and buy the rights to your book and publish it. My books are published in 9 languages. My little tiny books about this tiny little country.
Yeah, I think Married to Bhutan is translated into Vietnamese and...
Yes, Vietnamese and Turkish. And
that's amazing.
Like random places.
And because when I went to Goodreads and Amazon, there's so many comments from all different languages, and I thought that was amazing.
It's gorgeous. It's not even really a reflection on, my brilliant writing. It's an interest in Bhutan. People in the world want to know about this amazing place. And so anyway, I've been saying this for years. I would love to talk with young people who are willing to put the work in and focus. And there's a lot of rejection. In publishing, there's a lot of highs and there's a lot of lows and not much in between. Self-publishing, to me, it's all low. You have to market, you have to write, you have to, and you're in the cold. With a mainstream publisher in a big country, usually English-speaking country, could be India, I don't know. But you've got editors, you've got people, you've got marketers, you've got people who will fuss over your books and, what does the cover look like? By the way, my husband did both of the covers for my books, and he's a little upset because this one covers the
beautiful drawings.
Yeah.
And I know this. I know that you're being very authentic here. This is something you've been saying for the past 10 years.
I know. Listen to me.
That we need to do this. We need to get out there. And you really do believe that there will be an amazing story from Bhutan.
More than one, probably, but there is somebody's going to do it.
Apart from being a wonderful author and a writer who writes such amazing things about your life here in Bhutan predominantly, I know that this is not all there is to you. You're also very active on the Bhutan Foundation board. And I know there's a project that's close to you. It involves our 4-legged furry friends. Can you tell us a bit more about the things that you've been doing for our stray dogs, and also not just stray dogs, but other things?
Yeah, my work at the Bhutan Foundation is really important to me on their advisory board. But I've known all of them. There's an office in Washington, D.C., because that's primarily where the fundraising comes from. Americans are pretty generous. They get good tax write-offs if they donate. So we love Americans to donate. And there's some very good American friends to Bhutan. Mm-hmm. Bhutan Foundation does amazing work all over the country. They just electrified Ajane. Mm-hmm. My sisters-in-law just went there, and something like 96% of the country is now electrified. That's a big change from when I first came in 1994, when maybe half the country was electrified. So that's huge. Anyway, Bhutan Foundation does amazing work, and so they sent me on a little course to learn how to fundraise. I'm not great at it, but it's really a passion for me to try to raise money for His Majesty's Kidu Fund, as well as the National Vet Hospital. Tashi Pede's, not Tashi Pede's, but she's the director of Royal Society for Protection and Care of Animals, which is an amazing and wonderful organization that helps a lot of dogs have a great life, a lot of these misfit dogs. So some very kind Sasha, this fabulous Australian lady, and Kinga, our good friend, contractor, put a shed up for these lovely animals at Royal Society for Protection and Care of Animals, hard to say. Anyway, so yeah, that's really important to me. And it's check out Bhutan Foundation. They do such good work. Amnor Bhutema is the director here.
Okay, Linda, I have a question for you. What makes you wake up in the morning besides the smell of coffee?
Definitely the smell of coffee. Namgay, my husband Namgay, he makes me. That's such a sweet thing that's a question that, he is making coffee, so it's really nice. But that's not the only reason that I like him. And it's a very unlikely marriage that we have, but it's pretty solid. I mean, after all these years, and it's unlikely. But as he always says, my thing is, we're so different. We have such different ways of thinking, of being, everything. But there's some respect, and also
about to say that he's mutual respect.
Yes, and as he says, our hearts are the same.
That's beautiful.
But it's also very true.
I mean, there's so many wonderful snippets in the book about your courtship, and again, I don't want to give spoilers, but I can't help but say this, since we're both wearing tegos and wanjus. I liked how you said that yours was a courtship of our national dress, like how he'd fix his coat, and you'd do this, and there was a sign of
chatting.
And then that's so again something I never thought of, but it's so true. The nonverbal, and I think
there's a lot of nonverbal here in Bhutan.
Definitely.
And also, just to get back to maybe writers and trying to inspire writers and encourage people other than older Americans to write about Bhutan. You don't come from a writing culture. You don't come from a reading culture.
This is more orally passed.
You're orally passed on, but that's okay. I mean, talking to a tape recorder, but also you have the Seljat Sungchu, which is Tibetan, so you borrow that. So in a way, you're working against the tide. You're working against a lot, I believe. Maybe you came up and Zolko was your first language, or Molba, or something else, but there, and the English that we speak here is not American English or British English or even Indian English. It's very localized, idiomatic expressions, things like that. And that's why reading other things and even traveling is good. I mean, maybe some Bhutanese from Australia can write, a bestseller about Bhutan, because you have to be aware of the rest of the world, and you have to write for the rest of the world. So a lot of what I read here it won't translate, because, and that's an issue. You're also working against social media. It's speeding up your brain. It's really hard to write. Another darling, lovely young woman that I know was saying, she was reading Marriage of Bhutan, but she's having trouble. She liked it, but she's having trouble finishing. And I'm like, okay. I said, how long have you been reading it? She said 4 months. Well, obviously her brain is speeded up. She's got to slow her brain down. There are tricks. I don't have all the answers, but I know how I do it. And that's a really conscious thing that you have to do. And so language and also, finding a publisher, a literary agent, they're all things you can do. There's steps. And it's hard, but it's doable. And somebody can do it better than me here, I'm sure.
When you say that Bhutan needs, we need to tell our story to the world, I know you don't mean it in just a marketing point of view, but you really do believe that the world has also become just this one small...
Yes, and for His Majesty.
Correct.
For His Majesty, who is saving us. He saved us from the pandemic, and now with his new project, he's saving us. He is making Bhutan, as he says, he doesn't think 5 years down the road. He thinks 100 years down the road. And he wants to keep this amazing, beautiful place that we all love so much. Even if we push off to Australia, it's a worthy place. It's the center of the universe, quite frankly. We have to help His Majesty. We have to help His Majesty. And so if you want to write a book more appropriately, if you're passionate about something and you want to tell a story of Bhutan, do it. Do it internationally. Do it for His Majesty. Do it to help His Majesty. We don't help him enough. I don't help him enough. I want to, because I've been allowed to be here for so long, and everybody puts up with me. I feel like I want the world to know how special it is.
So, on that wonderful note, we've come to the part of our segment where we get to ask our guests if there's anything that you would like to particularly say to the youth, the young people who are watching this segment today, this interview. So what's your message to them, Linda?
What I would say to young people is, you don't have to write a book, but tell the world that a place like this exists, that Bhutan exists, and it is so unique in the world. If you learn more about the world and don't be complacent, and learn what's going on in the world, it'll help you realize how amazing Bhutan is and how lucky you are. And tell the world, learn about the world, and tell the world about your beautiful, amazing country and your king.
We've now reached the end of this interview with the lovely and humorous and wonderful Linda Leaming. I want to thank Bhutan Echoes for giving me a chance to reconnect and to read these amazing books by Linda. Please, if you haven't, do read it. It's called Married to Bhutan, her first book, and A Field Guide to Happiness. So from all of us, Tashidele, and see you on the next episode.